Good afternoon. It is 1 o'clock on Monday, November 25th, 2019. We are here for the regular trustee meeting. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have an agenda before us. Do we have any additions, modifications, or alterations?
Board, we have two, one from the fire department, two for the fire department, one for me. Under administrator for tornado proclamations, I do need to add the Rotary Club. I'll explain that when we get to that part of the section.
Okay.
And under the fire department, we need to add approval for retirement proclamation. And then also need to remove our request for the CPSE Excellent Conference purchase request for that. We need to remove it.
Okay.
I need to add, under fiscal officer, account temps, please.
Okay. Any other additions or modifications?
Hearing no other additions or modifications, I would move to approve the agenda as modified.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve general ledger report in the amount of $366,079.19 for the November 20, 2019 payroll.
Second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Make a motion to accept the payment listing reports in the amount of $309,592.50 for warrants through 11/21/19.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
You know what, I see the minutes, that was my mistake, that you do have the minutes. Do you wanna wait till the next session, or
I've read them and I can.
do you wanna modify? I didn't see that, that's my mistake completely.
I mean, we can modify it, Adam.
We've got them right
Yeah. It's for 11/12 and 10/28, correct?
here. Both regular.
Both regular meetings, correct. Thank you, Mr. Kretz.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from Tuesday, November 12th and Monday, October 28th as presented.
Second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes. All right. Any citizens desiring to speak? Seeing none, we will move on to old business, which there is none.
Did Ms. Graff?
We'll do that.
Ms.
after.
Graff?
I didn't know if
Yeah.
she was
She's
here to speak.
representing, Ms.
Okay.
Graff's here representing the auxiliary.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
No, that's later.
And
Yes,
later,
ma'am.
right? Later. And before we get to our new business, I just want to personally recognize and welcome Miss Jessica Dean, who will be filling my seat as of January 1. And I want everyone to please welcome her with open arms. And I trust that things will continue as they have. And we're very happy that you're here with us today. So, new business, Mr. Zaharia.
Thank you, Board. I do have a presentation on enterprise fleet management. I know we've discussed this over the years in regarding to whether to outright purchase a vehicle or to go to a lease program of fleet management. We do have several vehicles that in the next 10-year period need to be replaced in the fire department, road department, general fund for pool vehicles, and some discussion on whether we add it for police cruisers as well. So I'd like to introduce all the staff from, and I'll have them introduce and put it on the record for fleet management. Presentation, they have a presentation for you plus handouts.
Yes. Do you want me to stand there?
At the microphone so we can have you on the recording.
Okey doke.
was like, I already gave my kids my Netflix password. I'm not giving it to you.
The big one now is Disney Plus, Mr. Chris.
Yeah. Yeah? Nothing? Oh, there we go. I heard the click. All right. There we go. My name is Jeremy Baldwin with Enterprise Fleet Management. I have Brian Lenahan, who's our local director. Molly Sellers is one of our account managers. We appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk with you guys about what we do. Before I get started, anything else we need to say? Okay, good. So we're a division of the rental car company. We partner with a lot of local government and commercial entities, both in Ohio and around the nation, to really drive down their cost of running the fleet of vehicles that they have. And purpose of today's conversation, we're going to be talking primarily the white fleet. That's non-emergency response vehicles, so pickup trucks, cargo vans, so forth. What we find, a lot of government entities like to partner with us and commercial entities because really, if you've ever rented a car, you know that it's relatively new and there's really low mileage on those vehicles. A partnership with government works really well. It's essentially we're giving you the enterprise rent-a-car model. Because you buy so well as a government entity, you can run that vehicle for a year, a couple years later, and sell it for just a little less than what you paid for it, essentially driving down your operational expense, which is roughly 2/3 of the cost of running a fleet of vehicles. So today we're just going to do some high-level overview of what we do, walk through the analysis that I walked through with Alex and Tim and the fire department. And if you have any questions, again, anytime, just let us know. So we have over about 30 customers in in Ohio altogether, around 800 government clients around the country. Delaware County, Claremont County, CODA, Miami University, Franklin County Public Health. Do we need to rotate that? Sorry. Okay.
It's good.
City of Sharonville, City of Monroe, Northridge. So many references that I've shared with Alex and his team. We're also part of Sourcewell and Tips Taps and E&I, so nationwide purchasing co-ops. We've been the preferred vendor for those for multiple years because of our relationship and what we do as a company to really drive down the cost. Ultimately, you're spending money on your fleet. Without us, we want to work together and drive down costs over the long run. Work together as a long-term partnership. So we're not a dealership, we're a fleet management company. We're here to help you figure out what is the right vehicle, the right size vehicle, what is the right time to run that vehicle in length to really drive down the cost per mile or total cost of ownership. That's really what it comes down to. So if we look at your current budget based off of these 19 vehicles that are your non-emergency response vehicles, your budget's about $93,000 annually. And you can see that roughly 60% or so is the operational expense. You know, what we find in the government realm and across the board really is, hey, we bought a vehicle, we paid cash for it, we don't have a payment again. Well, that's true, you don't have a capital outlay, but what you are losing is that resale value. So true, you're not paying capital on a vehicle every year, but that vehicle depreciates. So instead of running the vehicle, your average is 8.1 years, instead of running it 15 years and getting $500 to $1,000 or so dollars, what if you were to sell that vehicle at 5 years and, you know, recoup maybe 60% of the cost of the vehicle because of your mileage? You'll see that your annual average miles is about 8,400. So retail, if you look at AAA, it's about 15,000. So as a government entity, you're driving much less miles than the retail world. So again, your vehicle becomes not that type of vehicle, let's say 5 years old, 45,000 miles. There's really none in the market. So it drives up the cost. People will pay more money for a lightly used vehicle. And if you guys run a vehicle for 5 years, 40,000 miles, you may have done a tire on, if you hit a pothole or a set of brakes. You're really just living in that preventive maintenance world. Essentially the rental car model. You know, we try as a company to get rid of all our vehicles before we have to do any major repairs, because once you put a set of tires into a vehicle, That's, $800 to $1,000. Now I got to run that vehicle longer, right? Because I got to get my money back. So we're doing is really working with you and your team and figuring out on a per vehicle basis what is the right time to run that vehicle. Any questions so far? Okay. So as it loads, there we go. So right now we're trying to figure out, well, your replacement window, the box isn't showing up. Well, there's if you imagine a black box toward the end there, that's where your replacement cycle is. The words are there. The box isn't, so technical difficulties there. What we're trying to do is really figure out, shorten that life cycle. As we know, newer vehicles just cost less to maintain than older vehicles. They do have better value. They just run more efficiently. But the problem is, how do you replace newer vehicles, right? When you don't have the capital there to replace it, as most vehicles cost on average $30,000 a year now. So if you need to replace 5 vehicles, that's $150,000. You have money going elsewhere to your emergency response or larger plow trucks or equipment. So this white fleet, as we call it, kind of gets the hand-me-down or leftover dollars. So that's what we focus on. Now there's the box. There we go. So the total cost of ownership concept. So this is based off the 2019 Chevy extended cab, or double cab as they call their extended cab, 4x4. So if you ran this vehicle for 10 years, 100,000 miles, all in, it's going to cost you about $68,000. So you can see if you take the fuel maintenance and then downtime, those are the big costs. That's roughly 60% or so of running of the life or cost of that vehicle. So what we want to do is figure out how can we shrink that cost. And we look at every vehicle individually. So depreciation is just a small drop in the bucket, so we want to focus on the operational expense, because really, when it comes to a vehicle, you have 2 buckets. You have your operational and you have your capital. And we're trying to shrink both as much as we can. So this is your government buy power. This is why our program works great. If you and I were going to personally to go out and buy a vehicle, it's going to cost us $37,000, or that's our starting point. We have to negotiate based off MSRP and get this vehicle for as cheap as we can. As a government entity, you are buying this vehicle for about $9,000 to $11,000 on average, less than retail public.
You're right.
So, just if that was important or not. So you can see right now your incentive is, let's say, $11,000, right? You're eating that first year depreciation right away. So what essentially happens, you guys are in a break-even day one. So what most government entities do is they run this vehicle for 10 years, 115,000 miles. You're going to sell that for $6,100. So essentially your capital outlay is $19,800. Then you got to think, what have we put in that maintenance over the 10 years? So if we shorten that life cycle to 5 years, 60,000 miles, that vehicle is going to sell for about $16,700. So essentially cutting your capital cost in half, and at 5 years, 60,000 miles, you may have done a set of tires at this point, but you're really living in that preventive maintenance realm, no big ticket. So again, your costs are going down. Now our job is to figure out per vehicle, and that's Molly's one of our account managers. We meet with our customers 2 to 4 times out of the year, which we'll get into, but is to figure out what is that right life cycle on a per vehicle basis. Because every vehicle might be used differently, might have different upfit, might have different roles in the township. So if we ran that vehicle for 2 years, at 15,000 miles, we can sell it for $25,000, you're getting your capital outlays that. And in some cases, we're able to sell that vehicle a year old for more than what you paid for. Now, I'm not saying that this works every time, but this is essentially the rental car model. It's like stocks. Buy cheap, sell high. That's exactly what we're doing for you, is trying to figure out on each individual basis, when is the right time to buy, what's the right time to sell that vehicle. And it's a moving target. So we'll get into the structure of it. But every year we look at this and analyze, do we want to keep this vehicle another year? Do we want to sell it now? What is the lowest cost of ownership for that vehicle? Now, like I mentioned earlier, we're after fleet management. So you can pay cash for a vehicle, you can finance a vehicle, or do what's called a market value finance. So The market value finance is another term is called open-ended lease. So there's no miles restrictions, there's no wear and tear penalties for this vehicle. Essentially, it's just a different way of financing. So instead of financing a vehicle down to zero, we'll finance it to a higher value. So if we go back to this slide here, oops, sorry. If we take, for instance, I can't go up there, but if we take, for instance, your 5-year-old vehicle, or a 2-year-old vehicle we'll go with, for simple numbers, it cost you $25,900, we know it's gonna sell for $25,000 2 years later. The open-ended lease is a cash flow tool, or market value finance. We'll have you pay that vehicle down from $25,000 down to $23,000. So over 2 years, you'll pay $3,000 for that vehicle. So it's just financing. You'll make small monthly payments over that time frame. When we sell that vehicle for the $25,000, you get that difference back. So if we paid that vehicle down to $23,000, we sell it for $25,000, you get $2,000 back. So as a trade-in or down payment toward the next vehicle. So that's why we call it an equity lease. You're building equity in the vehicles. So it's a cash flow tool. It's strictly a cash flow tool. We know, because we're a conservative company, we do this all day long. We know what that vehicle is going to sell for in the future. We build up a couple grand of equity to be safe in case the economy tanks or steel goes up, something like that, a buffer. So then what we do is it allows you to replace more vehicles, get you on that shorter life cycle, which drops down your operational expense without having to come up with the capital piece. So again, we're not a dealership. We don't care how you fund the vehicle. Majority of people go with the open-ended lease just because it's flexible. You can get in and out of the vehicle at any time. You can extend the lease. You can turn it in early. Just like a finance, it's just where have you paid it down to what it sells for in the market. And it's on an individual vehicle basis. So it's completely flexible. So you could, 12 months in, we get a vehicle for Tim and he doesn't like it. You can say, hey guys, this isn't the vehicle for me. We can turn it in. You're probably at a break even or making money. You can bring in a new vehicle and go at that point. So our job is to then help you figure out, make sure it's the right tool for the job. I mean, they're just appreciating assets, so how can we keep those costs as low as possible for that life cycle and how the vehicles is used. You can upfit them however you want. You can letter them, logo them. It's a turnkey process. There's no upfront charge or anything. We just handle the logistics for it. So when you get that vehicle, it's ready to go. So your team doesn't have to really deal with trying to figure out logistics and stuff. Any questions so far? Okay. Got the FRS here. So I'm handing out this slide, so it's a little smaller.
Sure.
I got 4 copies.
Thanks.
So we profiled out these 19 vehicles that fall into the life cycle. So you'll see the different sizes from the other category is your existing emergency response vehicles for the fire department that are going to become half-ton trucks that they're going to upfit with their equipment. Just to give you a heads up on that. So you'll see the average age is 8.1, average annual miles is 8,400. So if you look at the replacement criteria and
Quickly to clarify, so when you're showing mileage and age and things like that, this is our current inventory that
Yes.
you've modeled.
It's your data.
This is not data that you're extracting from the market.
No,
Okay.
I'm using you guys as information.
Good, thank
Yep.
you.
And is the red box reflecting vehicles that we would be looking to replace?
On the bottom,
Yes.
that's just showing an older life cycle.
Okay, because it says 8, but there's actually 9 vehicles in that box.
So on the bottom box, that square, that's how many you guys replaced that year. So that's just going over the last 20
That's
years of
historical.
replacement. So that's just past
That's
history
right.
on the very bottom. So we're looking at the top section there.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So the replacement criteria is the top right corner of the page in the small print. It says 2020, we're gonna replace the vehicles, the oldest of the old ones that aren't worth that much and are probably costing you the most in money. So 10 years old or over 100,000 miles. So if you take that to the fleet replacement schedule box, every plate looks at 9 vehicles there. So in the first year, we're replacing half your fleet, roughly, because they're over 10 years, over 100,000 miles. And then as you go down the replacement criteria, that just equates to those vehicles over time. So over 5 years, we're going to replace your entire fleet and get you to a healthier, shorter life cycle. Any questions so far?
Writing them down for later. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. So then, Vanna, if you please. We go to the analysis portion of what does this look like. So the yellow line is what you guys are currently doing. So on average, you're replacing 1.2 vehicles a year, costing you that $22,500, using your maintenance numbers at 30,780, fuel numbers based off 10 miles per gallon for that total fleet budget of that $93,500. So the next line down, you're going to see that we're going to do the open-ended lease or market value finance. We're going to lease 9 vehicles, and those 9 vehicles are going to cost you $38,500. So again, this is where the open-ended lease is purely a cash flow tool. It allows you to get more vehicles. You pay for just a little more than what you use, building up some equity in those vehicles. So those first 9 vehicles we think are going to sell for about $40,500. So when you gov deals those, you're going to get that money back. Your maintenance cost is essentially going to almost cut in half because you're getting rid of the worst of the worst. You're getting rid of those really old vehicles that are nickel and diming you. You're going to pick up fuel economy savings because you're going to go from 10 miles a gallon to about 13 as an average. And then your fleet budget. So you're going to see some cash savings the first year. Now, the big thing comes in is, yes, of course, year 1 makes sense, but we're going to show you 10 years because we want to show you that this is a long-term sustainable program. So as you add more vehicles, lease more vehicles, yeah, your capital expense goes up because you're just adding more vehicles. You're paying more capital. But what you're going to see is your newer vehicles that you guys own have more equity. So you're going to sell those and get that equity to apply to these. And then you're going to start seeing equity come in from the leased vehicles starting at 3 years. And if you go down the maintenance column, you'll see it eventually becomes fixed. Because we know at 8,400 miles a year on average, you're going to do 2 oil changes and a tire rotation. So essentially, you're really getting into a almost zero maintenance cycle for these vehicles. So we don't even anticipate on most of these doing a set of tires. Occasionally you'll have your curb or something like that. But for the most part, you're going to have your maintenance costs going to become fixed. Your fuel economy is going to go down as well and become fixed. We estimate it at 13 miles per gallon because some of these are a little larger vehicles. And the reason we can fix that is because, that we show that's fixed is because by 2025, everything that's a half ton and smaller has to be at an average of 54.5 miles per gallon. That's the EPA regulation. And all pickup trucks, half ton to 1 ton, need to be at an average of 30.5 miles per gallon. So every year since 2010, fuel economy has been going up by roughly 2% a year. So by getting to a healthier life cycle or shorter life cycle, that always ensures that you have the newest, better technology, best fuel economy. So then as you go down over 10 years, we're showing $294,000 savings over 10 years. Now, at this point, a lot of people are like, this sounds great. How do you guys make money, right? So
That was
if you
my
guys have,
question.
if you haven't thought that yet, it's coming. So we are a for-profit company. However, we don't make a lot of money per vehicle. We look at volume and that we do a great job. So whoever sells you a vehicle, us or a dealership, that manufacturer pays that entity 3% of the MSRP price of the vehicle. So if you think back to that Silverado slide, it was $36,000. 3% of that's roughly $1,200, not $1,200 bucks, $1,100 we'll say. So we get $1,100 from the manufacturer for getting you that vehicle. That doesn't affect your pricing. It's just, hey, you sold a vehicle for us, great. Because all dealerships are franchises, so the manufacturers don't own any of them. It's just a kickback to them. or just a, hey, kudos, thank you for selling it. So we get that. Because it's a lease, we are the bank, so we have interest rate. And then we have a management fee, which pays for our team here in Cincinnati. We have 26 people in the office to help figure this out, run our software, all of that. So that's all built into the lease column. Our management fee is roughly $25 to $30 a month per vehicle that we get for you. So we don't make a lot of money per vehicle. We look at volume, that we do a great job, provide great value, that you continue to get vehicles from us. So we're in this for the long haul. We're not here just to see you, get you a vehicle in December and see you in another 12 months. Molly and her team will be coming out to meet with Alex and Tim and the fire chiefs and whoever else a couple times out of the year to really dive into how are the vehicles being used, is it the right tool for the job, are we doing the right thing for you, is there anything that we can change, and then once a year we're going to do an annual climate review, which is a year-over-year benchmark. Here's how, here's what we did last year, here's what we did this year, why costs went up, why costs went down, similar size vehicles out in the market, where are we compared to them. It's really all dive in to drive down your cost. Again, you're spending the money without us. We want to work together to spend it more efficiently with some savings in the long run. And this is our website, our dashboard. There's actually, each box is one. We have about 30 different dashboards. So then all the data that we're able to track would flow right into this website to really give you guys hands-on access for your fleet. So this is customizable to every user. But we like to show this so that way you can see that anything, you can have access to your data anytime. And then this is the 3 annual meetings that we'll have a year. One of the things that we try to do with our customers and our partners is figure out when is your budget season, and then work backwards on when do we want to place orders. Because in the middle of the summer, what we call fleet analysis meeting, so beginning around June through October is when 2020 or the next model year pricing comes out. So what we do is then start getting in front of our customers to lock you into introductory pricing, and then if we can, place those orders before everyone else does in January. Allows you to get your vehicles sooner than waiting 6 to 8 months for everybody else, rail car shortages. And we have 2 other meetings throughout the year,
Okay.
or more. I mean, it's up to you. We have a minimum of 3. And that's it in a nutshell.
Ready? This has been an exciting, exhilarating conversation so far. I've got some questions
Yeah,
for you.
yeah.
So brand restriction, are we limited to whoever you're affiliated with if we want Ford, Subaru, or Chevy?
No, we are not tied to any manufacturer.
Okay.
Our job is to show you every model year, if you want an SUV, the lowest cost per mile for each vehicle for that model year.
Okay. And then with regards to, and I guess this would be a road department and a fire question, our upfit cost. So once we buy theoretically an F-250 or a Chevy 2500 pickup, what is the upfit? I know when we look at chief vehicles versus road vehicles, we have different cost structure because, or a deputy vehicle. So there's the base cost of the vehicle, and then it seems like we put 50% to 100% of that cost back into it with upfit. That's customization for our own needs, our own application. So we're leasing a base vehicle, essentially, is what this implies, and then we are upfitting it, and then when we decommission that vehicle, we have to strip all that back off or out, and then hand it back to Enterprise. Is that the understanding?
No, so it's vehicle by basis, but if we look at some of the F-250s, for instance, Tim's going to put back racks or headache racks with
Right.
and upfit with plows. We'll sell that vehicle as is. 80% of our customers are in the commercial industry, so they're dump trucks, they're service bodies, they're doing all the type of equipment that you do.
Okay.
So they don't. All we do when we get the vehicle back, if you guys don't do it internally, is we will de-ID the vehicle.
Right.
So we'll remove all lettering, so no one will ever know it's Beavercreek Township. But we sell the vehicle as is.
So when we receive the vehicle from you, it has the upfit already included?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's the
it's
anticipation, except for obviously EMS and life.
They're looking to change something.
So fire has looked at and budgeted for an upfit that will actually be an insert pod into the vehicle that we can then move from one to another. The goal is to keep as much equipment on that particular unit so it can be transferred from one to the other, minimize our transfer costs. So any lighting and so forth, we would put as much as possible on that piece, including the equipment that would get mounted in, minimizing the wiring that would go up into the cab, so that we can then transfer that to at least one new vehicle. So we would be able to use that equipment for at least 2 rental vehicles through this process, or lease vehicles through this process, if not more.
Okay.
And
So
if I-
adding to Mr. Kretz's comments, we spend significant amount of dollars on striping, on the radios. The radios would be part of that upfit package?
Yes, and we would transfer that equipment from one to another to account for that cost.
Because on our, what we're looking at today, we've got costs for striping, for radio add-ons and things like that. And if we're gonna be doing that, then that's cost us more money because we have to do it every 3 years.
Right, that you're increasing the frequency. So the question, I guess, what you have to provide a breakdown for to make sure we're looking at the numbers honestly, is the acquisition cost of the vehicle, plus the customization that we do that I would consider, like Ms. Wallace is referring to with regards to striping and identification and everything else, marking of the vehicle. And then the upfit package. So in the road world, it sounds like the upfit package, a plow, the racks, everything else would come with the vehicle. In the fire world, it sounds like a portion of that would be a pod that we would insert and we would extract when we're finished with the vehicle.
Yes, and the reason we're moving to that model is so that we can still own the equipment for the same lifespan that we do today, so that we're not reinvesting that money over and over again. We'll reuse that equipment as much as
But the
possible.
marking and the striping is a sunk cost because we can't repurpose that when we take it off.
Yeah, we factored in on everything half-ton and larger. The half-ton and three-quarter tons, we factored in at least $3,000 of aftermarket because we know you're gonna do light packages on those. And then on his trucks, we did this, which half-ton trucks, as we go have that. And on the larger ones, we built in $13,000 of aftermarket.
Okay.
So in addition to that, the striping package for the fire, we would actually stripe the insert and only put the door decal on the actual vehicle to minimize what would be wasted
Okay.
in that conversion process.
Right, and I think also too, this is planning that for the vehicles for fire, we're transitioning from SUV to trucks.
Yes.
And then it's gonna be a truck with a cab or something to where everything's gonna go into the bed to where it can then be
Yes.
repurposed.
So that's
So
two
we're
reasons.
not looking at SUVs.
Right.
To follow with the cancer study that we did earlier in the year, it's been a recommendation to keep
Move it
those
out of the cab.
contaminants out of the cab, and then also to make it more cost-effective to reuse those equipment.
Okay.
What about, getting back to your comments of, we have an opportunity on another venue to get smart cars and get extra discounts from the state or from Miami Valley Regional Planning if we put towards our fleet some of the smarter cars, or, is that something that's possible through the leasing program? Is the,
Yeah, it's your fleet. You can do whatever you want. We see a lot of green initiatives out there. If you do research, there's a couple schools of thought. A lot of people say green vehicles, like all the electric and stuff, are greener. They actually have higher carbon footprint than gas engines. My coworker did, UD's coming on board as University of Dayton's coming on board as a customer, and they want to do all green fleet. Well, their carbon footprint is higher than gas engines, but they want the image. We can do whatever vehicles. You want a Chevy Bolt, which is the only electric vehicle, or it's the only electric vehicle of the big three make. You'd have to go to Hyundai or Kia or Toyota for a hybrid these days.
just to interrupt you though, that we've been instructed, that there's going to be at least 1,500 new models coming out in the next 2 years on those smart vehicles. So the selection process is gonna be fantastic in about 2 years.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wanna look way ahead on that
Yeah,
kind of,
you can do whatever you want. You can get any vehicle you want.
okay.
What we find, just to give you insight, is the initial green initiative is to get the shorter life cycle, because you're getting rid of your 10 or plus year old vehicle at, sedan that's getting 12 miles per gallon, 13, and you're getting a brand new one that's tripling that fuel economy. So that's the initial green initiative. How many other hybrids and electric vehicles you want? We don't care. It's your fleet.
Okay.
We can't do anything without you. We just come to you with recommendations. And that's why we like to meet with you a couple times out of the year, because we want to know what's going on in the township. If you get new grants, great. How can we effectively use that money? Because you're going to spend it. You want to use it on vehicles. All right, what's the best vehicle out there? That's part of this. So we can't do anything without your say. We're just there kind of managing the whole process for you.
So kind of back to the economics of the program. So we identify, and this is hypothetical, that we want 2 F-250 diesels next year, fully loaded plows, whatever. How do you price that lease to the township then? Is it a flat, you said it's a flat percentage is what you're looking for of the acquisition price?
No, so we
Or
take,
you're building in a residual and everything
we do,
else?
we have a residual. So it's based off time and miles.
Okay, so is the acquisition price based on what we can buy the vehicle for, or what you can acquire the vehicle for?
So we go to the manufacturer on your behalf. So we go to Ford, we went to
Okay.
Ford and Chevy, and we say, hey, Beavercreek Township's gonna do this many vehicles this year, this many of this type, how much money are you gonna give?
Okay.
And then we take that incentive and give it to you, pass it through to you. So if you're comparing us to state bid, on average, we're within $500 to $1,000 of state bid. For Delaware County, we were about $4,000 on average lower than state bid. Just because the Ram 1500 wins the state bid for a truck, or the Jeep wins it, doesn't mean that's the best vehicle out there. So those are things that we look at that we provide to you on top.
Okay, so we start with an acquisition price, and then on top of that, do we pay your finder's fee, or does the manufacturer pay that directly to you outside of our transaction?
The holdback,
Yeah.
that's just the manufacturer. That doesn't affect you guys.
But it's not
whatsoever.
on top of our acquisition price, it's built into that price, essentially?
No,
one way
it's
or the other.
completely separate. So you guys are buying invoice
Okay.
price minus all incentives.
Right,
And dealerships should be doing that for everybody, but they don't make money that way.
Sure.
So, if you were to go to them and buy off state bid like you do now, that manufacturer still pays them that 3%, the holdback of that vehicle.
and so in an open-end lease situation, then, how are you calculating residual?
Time and miles. So
Okay.
if we know you're gonna drive 10,000 miles a year, we look three years from now, 30,000 miles, that vehicle is gonna sell for $30,000. We'll build in a couple grand, maybe write it down to, if we're going 3/4 town route, write it down to $27,000, building up a little bit of buffer.
Okay.
Yep.
And then as far as our, what we're obligated to do as far as when we're finished with an asset, from revised code standpoint, turning a vehicle back in satisfies what we do now with going to gov bid?
No, we're not owning the vehicle, so that's the difference.
I understand, but
Yeah,
I'm saying, but
yeah.
we're not obligated to then try to recoup more of that lease back, or residual, turning it in for a residual value calculation is satisfactory.
So our
I'm just asking a legal question, sorry.
Oh,
I'm
I-
not trying to cut you short.
No, I just wanna make sure I understand your question correctly. I mean,
We go to gov bids now because
Right.
we have an obligation to get as much for that used asset as we can get. And the only way to prove that we got market for that is to put it up for auction. If we have hypothetically, we buy it for 25,000 and we have a 15,000 residual, is turning it back in at the residual value, does that satisfy getting the most for that asset that we use taxpayer dollars to pay for? Does that satisfy that? Or are we obligated, because no different than if I lease a vehicle from you, hypothetically, I can turn it back into you, or I can try to sell it on the open market. And where I'm heading is, do we have an obligation to try to gov bid it for a reserve which is equal to the residual?
I don't know if there's an obligation specifically to gov bid it, but I think
And not gov bid, but
Sure.
auction it off essentially, or sell it for a reserve price that would be equal to the residual. Because if theoretically, if the residual is 15 and we can sell it because it's low miles for 18, that's a 3,000 pickup. I don't know if you're going through an internal auction process.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Okay.
So how we sell vehicles meets that criteria. We don't single source. So we are the largest purchaser of vehicles in the US. We buy over 1 million vehicles, so it means we have to sell 1 million vehicles a year. So we only use auctions 15% of the time. because we get more money by hand selling. So all the dealers around here, Voss and stuff, they come to our car sale lots and they bid on them. And then every vehicle that comes in, rental or fleet vehicle, is pictured, everything set to a website, and it's shot out to not just Cincinnati, but Columbus, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Louisville, Indiana, Lexington, within an hour, 2-hour range, because our job is to get you as much money on the back end. So we have 700 people who all they do is sell vehicles every day, and they're graded how much above auction values, Black Book is what we use, how much above Manheim Black Book can we get for our customers. So on average in central southwest Ohio, we're $1,000 or 10% above auction back for our customers. So we're graded on how well we can get above auction for you. And because it's a silent bid, we have over 60, 70 entities that continually buy from us. So we don't accept low prices. So that helps that back end too.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a general standpoint, I mean, I haven't looked at it all very specifically, but from a general standpoint, as long as you are, again, showing that, you know, you are making good faith efforts to do that, I think that's gonna be sufficient, yeah.
That's what I was targeting, because taking your word for it, we got you the highest price, the question is, does that satisfy? Because at the end of the day, your motivation is to sell the vehicle, but we have similar motivations, but we have different guidelines we have to follow. And obviously, you're doing this with others, it doesn't mean they're doing it right, we've learned that before, but they're doing it, so.
No, I mean, that's a valid concern. You know, for us, if we want to buy that vehicle as cheap as we can. And if we don't do a good job on the back end, you're gonna be like, well, we could sell this for more. Why would we keep that partnership, right? So we want to sell that as much as we can, because the lower we can drive down that cost per mile or total cost of ownership, the more value you'll get out of enterprise. That's why we're in it for long haul. We do everything we can to maximize your resale on the back end. And if it's not gonna sell, we're gonna tell you. You know, part of Molly's job is one of our account managers. If there's a big issue come up or major damage happened or gas went to $5 a gallon, we're gonna be like, hey, this isn't the year to sell this vehicle. Or Megan and her team, when they get that vehicle, they're gonna say, hey, there's something going on here. What do you wanna do? So we work together as a team. We don't just take a lowball price, because that hurts our remarketing team. We wanna work together to really drive down the costs.
I have some questions to Mr. Parks. Yes, ma'am. I just want to clarify their assumptions. Do we keep our vehicles currently about 10 years? Is that a current assumption?
I can tell you the two that I have for next year. One is soon to be 12 years old, the other one's 14.
Okay. And the other question, I had two more questions. The other one is, do we have on fleet currently Chevy trucks 4x4 or something very similar?
Yes.
Okay. And then my third is, with the lowered maintenance costs that they're projecting on these newer vehicles, could we have someone in our shop learn how to pinstripe and do the stripings on the car? That would save us outside contracting.
Depends on the vehicle. For mine,
Okay.
my vehicles, we do our own. And that's just
For
nothing more than a
streets
door
and roads,
decal.
correct?
Yeah, that's a door decal, so.
Okay.
Now, with the plan that Fire has coming with the inserts, that piece will already be striped once. If you move it vehicle to vehicle, if it's just a door decal that needs to go on the vehicle, that's something we can now do in-house.
Okay. Because that'd be something I would want to move in-house with changing vehicles off every 3 years. I think that would be a prudent way to use our maintenance department.
Right.
Since you're gonna be reducing the amount of maintenance per vehicle per year.
Yeah, and that would not be an issue.
Okay.
An
As long as-
engine or a ladder is a different animal.
Yeah.
Right,
Engines,
right.
ladders,
Medics.
and the initial striping of the box, that's probably something different, because it's more
Right.
complex and
But
laid
the
out.
door
get that.
decal and a number, I'm assuming we got numbers too, we're already doing those.
Well, he's-
We are-
he's-
And
From-
we're gonna move that way for fire.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Parks.
You're welcome.
And so back to the 10 years, when we, to Keister, if you can clarify, when prior to the Novak study, we were on a 10-year and same with roads, we were on a 10-year or X number of miles rotation. After that, we've gone to the annual grading system, so we may have a vehicle that we keep for 8, we may have one we keep for 14, depending, it may hit the miles, but it may not hit the grading scale. So would we continue that grading scale with these lease vehicles, or we would have to then modify how we manage that fleet as far as when it's time to rotate?
We would continue that grading scale, but we'd also inject enterprise into that at least 2 meetings a year, once before the budget's completed and once in the spring, so that we're evaluating the vehicles twice as much as we are now, so that we can better project when we need to replace them.
Okay. And then the way your open lease is structured, are we obligated to sell the car back through you, or do we have the option to purchase that vehicle?
Yeah, so just like a
We have one
finance,
that
you can,
we only put
yeah.
5,000 miles on.
Yeah, so the key is that if we write that vehicle down to, if we go back to this, right, this scenario here, 25,000, we wrote that one down to 23. At the end of 2 years, you can buy that vehicle out for 23, you could turn it
And
in.
walk away, whatever.
You could walk away,
Okay.
yeah, so it's
So it's
completely flexible,
Like
and
a
so.
consumer lease in that aspect.
Yeah, so it's not a dealership style lease. There are no miles restrictions,
Right.
there's no wear and tear penalties. So we're not, we can do those, but it doesn't make sense because these are a depreciating asset tool for business that's gonna come back with a cracked windshield, it's gonna have stains, some holes in the seat, dents on the bumper. We know it's gonna come back like that. That doesn't affect who we're selling the vehicle to. So this is really just, the open-end lease is just a cash flow tool. It's just a different way of financing. At any time, you could, one of the things I like to tell everybody is 2 years in, if you don't like, it just doesn't work out, it's rare, but if it doesn't, you can kick us to the curb. At any time, you're just, where have you paid down the vehicle down to what it sells for in the market? And how the program terminates, you just don't get vehicles from us anymore. And you can then just, whatever you guys decide with those existing vehicles you got from us. So you're not stuck with us like a cell phone contract or anything like that. I mean, so,
How does
Yeah.
how does this work or integrate with Otarma, as far from an insurance standpoint or anything else? I mean, is there any concerns
have
or
any-
issues?
I don't think it'll have any
No.
difference on it, and
They'll just, it goes in as an, part of our inventory of what we have.
Meaning if we are insuring newer vehicles now, if more of our fleet is on the newer end versus our fleet is on the
There will be
8
a
to 10 year
savings there.
old. So,
Yeah.
be it savings or
No,
newer
savings.
vehicles are safer now, which I found this out from an insurance rep I was talking to about a couple months ago.
but the replacement cost
Be-
is
be-
higher.
the newer vehicles are cheaper because of all the safety features, so they're safer on the road. Because a lot of them have the backup cameras now, they have the lane departure warning standard. They're just more expensive vehicles. I mean, vehicles go up roughly 3% every year anyway in price. Resale goes along with it. Just, tariff and stuff doesn't
I'm
help.
assuming the only requirement would be that enterprise be listed as additional insured.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's pretty
That would
much it.
probably be the only requirement for Otarma.
Yeah.
Does that create any conflict with immunity or anything else that we have?
No,
Okay.
no, that wouldn't happen at all.
Okay. And then, so if we were to look at, what you've done is, what you've essentially modeled, if I interpret this correctly, is a phased-in approach, essentially.
Yeah.
And so, you're, based on your model, you're projecting a 293,000 savings, is that right?
Yeah.
Which is that a savings, or is that a reduction in cash output?
It's
Because
a,
there's two different trains of thought there. Savings
Yeah.
would be, we're saving because we have more efficient vehicles, they're lower cost to operate, we've reduced our maintenance. If it's reduction in cash flow because we're not buying vehicles during that period, that's different. So which one is it, or is it a blend?
it's a blend,
Okay.
because you're gonna have cash flow, better cash flow on acquiring vehicles, but you're gonna get savings on the maintenance and the fuel of the vehicle, so it's a blend.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so from what I would like to see, and I don't know if you have another slide, but is if we can separate the two, just so we understand the difference. And we can do the math here, sort of, to do it quickly, but if you had something. Because in an ideal setting, but in a practical, you could do this, essentially take this 293,000, and if you look at it over a 5-year period, and now you could get 200 basis points on investing half of that money or whatever. I calculated roughly 220,000 in the first 5 years. So now if you're putting that into, and you're making 200 or 225 basis points on investing, that money that you would have spent, now you can reduce that off of this, and it increases the 293 by another 4,000, 5,000 a year. So now you picked up another 20. So I just argued for it, I'm just saying.
No, yeah. Yeah,
But it's
you-
real, I mean, if you have that cash, now what do you do with the cash in our situation?
Exactly.
So it's not, we can either deploy it, there's an opportunity expense, obviously, if we don't. So the opportunity expense is the interest we could make on it. We've learned from past experience, we can exponentially increase our interest income. So
Yeah.
take that money, invest it, and then roll that back.
Right.
So,
we're usually not privy to those conversations, so I have nothing to comment on that.
public meeting.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're not, nobody usually brings that up, but that's a good
Yeah.
point, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other advantage that we didn't talk about is, usually we go through the budget process, we're about to go through it. We wait till state term comes out. Sometimes it's March, sometimes it's May, till we know what vehicle is on the state term pricing, and whether that makes sense for us. In this case, part of this program, we're gonna be able to constantly evaluate the fleet, and we could order vehicles for the next budget year, as early as June. So that it is in and ready to go. The other thing to point out is, a lot of times our vehicles
And
come
they'll
in.
hold that year's pricing? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the best thing, so throughout a model year, the manufacturer price goes up roughly to 2% or so. Every quarter usually goes up a couple $100 per vehicle. So by starting at the beginning of the model year, you lock in intro pricing, and it stays that way. But when we order that vehicle from the manufacturer, you don't pay anything until you take delivery. So if we order a vehicle in July, we're not replacing it till March. What we're doing is we're putting you first in line for March delivery. So, and then you just don't pay anything until you take delivery of that vehicle.
The other thing too that we look at a lot, especially with fire department SUVs, for example, we wait for delivery, and then we don't know that date. That date comes
Right.
in. Once it's in, then we have to start scheduling, for example, P&R communications, other things like that. And so that vehicle doesn't go on service for another 2-3 months after we take delivery. So we have this whole delay of and it could happen also in the road department if we're buying something that's got a bucket on it, and we gotta send that out to get the bucket put on, or stainless steel dump or something like that. So we're rolling with that delay. What we're looking at here is that vehicle comes into the fleet in service, ready to go. So the day it arrives at Beavercreek Township, it's deployable into the fleet.
And that's part of our process too. So Molly and her team, so we work with Tim and Nathan and the fire chiefs, whoever else needs aftermarket. So we work together on the aftermarket, make sure it's the right spec. So when we place the order with the manufacturer, we let that aftermarket vendor know, hey, we're ordering this vehicle, here's the lead time. And then every week, or almost every day, we're looking at where are the vehicles in that shipping status. So as soon as we get a production date on that vehicle, we then call the manufacturer and say, hey, that vehicle's gonna be here in 3 weeks. If you haven't ordered it already, get it ready. If it's a larger piece of equipment, they already have that date and it's already ordered, like the stainless steel dumps. The guys up at Buckeye or Henderson are gonna know months in advance, hey, we placed this order, and they're gonna start building that pretty quick, because takes forever to build one of those things. So we're handling that whole logistics to minimize that downtime. And then,
I'm a big proponent, so have been for years.
on your existing vehicles, swapping it over, we can come and sell your existing, or you'll gov deals them. So it's a turnkey, seamless program for you guys.
The other change I would like to point out to the board is so that we're all, we're understanding what we're getting into up front in this, is that this will, unlike just for today, well, that's a medic unit, so it'll be different, but if we had a staff car and we would obviously bring that staff car to you, to purchase the staff car, the striping and so on, and, be in an open meeting, and we'd pass motions and have purchase requests. With this management, this is much like outsourcing IT. We are going to shift from bringing all that to the board to back to managing it with staff. And so when we meet, they say, hey, you guys sell this vehicle in 2 months, because the market is driving it, and you can sell it tomorrow at this price. We manage that.
Yeah.
So on the staff level, as opposed to every year coming back on, okay, we're gonna purchase 5 vehicles. Now, we'll probably
Wouldn't the,
have,
wouldn't the execution of a new lease or the termination of an existing, though, come back before the board?
we can, in this program, it would be managed by staff.
So you could add unlimited number of vehicles without coming back before the
Well,
board?
it have to be budgeted, so you'll have the budget
Okay.
part of it. So,
So
for
at that
example,
point,
next
it'll
week.
come before the
yeah,
board in that budget
yeah.
hearing.
Much like the
that-
payroll's done really a year
Yeah.
ahead of time, you're budgeting
Right.
all of that a
Yeah.
year ahead of time, so.
Yeah.
So what will happen, you'll see it on December 17th at the budget meetings, and the document that'll be coming out this week, and this is why I wanted to do it today, because the board said, we don't like this program. Staff's gotta go back to the drawing board and get some documents to me by Wednesday. So by doing this, you'll see this in the budget. It'll be budgeted, how many vehicles, what that cost per vehicle is based on all the documentation you have here today. And then if you look at our 5 years, we're gonna see those prices as well. What we haven't talked about yet, that is, you'll see in the budget, is we do have a vehicle, that we're gonna talk with them about, and that's one of the, police cruisers, which will still be an SUV type vehicle. If we do it through the fleet program, we're not looking at getting money coming back, because of the wear and tear of those vehicles.
So are you comfortable with, essentially a fleet management budget approval annually?
Well, I was gonna make a suggestion that, since you meet 3 times a year, I think 1 time a year you need to meet with the township trustees to have an overall report.
Yeah, we could do that. I
I
mean,
think
obviously,
I would
we'll,
feel more comfortable
Or it
with
would
that.
be twice a year, when.
Well, and they're meeting with staff 3 times a year, they said. So I would like to have them meet with, out of that 3, one of them.
yeah,
should
that'll
be
give you
able to-
2 opportunities. One, you're getting it in the budget, know how many
Budget, and then
vehicles
maybe-
we are potentially, now that may change throughout the year,
Yeah.
but
Right.
potentially leasing that year. And then we can come back mid-year and say, here's where we're at with the program, and here's the savings and everything else.
And like Mr. Kretz had mentioned, having a report on when Mr. Parks does his biweekly reports. In the biweekly report, you can let us know when a vehicle is being changed out and being leased out.
Just a point of awareness.
I think that, not knowing at all, I mean, not that I don't trust our administrator, but I think that keeping us informed as to what's coming in and out of the street, I wanna be able to tell our citizens, hey, yes, that is a brand-new car, and here's why we did it. I don't wanna be not knowing
Or just a
ahead
copy
of
your
time that this
quarterly
is
report,
happening.
whatever it is.
And the other thing we'll see after the first year is whether we continue on.
Right.
And you'll see that information in the budget as well. To
Right.
say, here's how much we've saved so far by doing this. So it is and why I say that is because I wanna make sure we're upfront that, you're right. I'm not sitting here going, okay, I'm gonna turn in this vehicle and purchase this one. We're still gonna inform you. It just won't be a legislative action
I get
that
that.
we're coming to trade this vehicle in and enter into another lease.
I think the essentially December budgeting for the next following year, working off that plan, that budget plan essentially for the year, copying the board when you have your quarterly reports, essentially keeping us informed so that nobody wants a December surprise that, oh, it didn't work worth a damn and we're gonna cancel the whole thing. So we don't want that after the fact. We'd wanna know that proactively throughout it, so.
And then I would assume, say there's an addition along the way, we add people, add staff, and there's a reason, then that would come back.
Well, we
If it's
would,
not budgeted.
we
If
would
it's not
budget,
budgeted.
yeah, if it would budget, that would be a
Unbudgeted.
budget increase, and it would be over 2,500.
So I agree with Mr. Kretz,
Yeah.
this is something we have talked about every year for years, and we've been wondering about why we're not doing this, so I think it's a good thing.
One of the things to your point, Ms. Wallace, is that we can write, we have an, public affairs, public relations, there we go, that's the term. We can help draft the article or a newsletter, a press release for you if you would like us to.
That would be great.
Yeah. put it in
Because,
there.
it's gonna be a slow process, but the other thing too is you're gonna get with this fleet, you're gonna get better safety features on the fleet, and it's gonna be better image.
Lower
You guys are
I
one of the,
agree.
you're one of the faster growing townships, regions in the Dayton area, so look, as we talk to other entities, trying to attract businesses by having newer vehicles is a big benefit to them. So,
But we
some
need to
soft
educate our citizens.
Yeah.
I mean, cause I like to make sure that they know what's happening with
We
us.
can definitely work together and get that done for you.
So I do have a motion here to go ahead and execute. I didn't put all the legal documents in here because the packet was already 99 pages long. This one made it almost 200 pages, but it has been reviewed by legal. I do recommend moving forward with this. This will allow us not only to discuss further what we're going to do in the budget meetings, but allow us to start potentially ordering the equipment we need to be ready for those vehicles that we need to purchase or lease. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're fine, you're fine.
That's it. We're gonna have to
Yeah.
learn, new language. So I have a motion here.
I'll make a motion to approve the maintenance agreement and equity lease agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management and authorize the township administrator to execute any and all necessary documents on behalf of the Board of Trustees for the lease of vehicles for the township pursuant to the agreements with Enterprise Fleet Management for vehicles up to the amount authorized pursuant to RC 507.11.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you, board.
Thanks for the
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for your time and
Thanks, guys.
education.
Not that-
Do you have business cards? I do.
Thank you.
If you guys have any.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Breaking things.
Right, you bought
Usually
it.
we throw it on the ground.
Thank you.
Can you guys, can I have one more for our new trustee?
Oh, yes,
One more
yes.
set, just one more set of cards.
All right, thank you, board.
Moving on, Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, board. First thing I have for you are several proclamations. I did add into your, and I have two copies here, one for the resolution book and the one that we will eventually hand out to all the jurisdictions. This rounds out the completion of all the jurisdictions that assisted us in the tornado recovery, not only response, but recovery. There are proclamations here for Bath Township, City of Fairborn, Xenia Fire for the use of their drone, Westchester Township, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base on the initial response that evening, Washington Township, Sugar Creek, and Miamisburg. In front of you, you do have a challenge coin that was a joint purchase between the city and the township. On one side has the township emblem, on the other has the city emblem. We have enough purchased for not only the staff, both city and township that work the events, but also all the jurisdictions, elected officials and appointed officials, and all the jurisdictions that appointed us. So we have plenty of them. There's I think we bought how many? 750. So we have plenty of coins to hand out. Once you sign these proclamations, you can pass one motion. I did add Rotary. Rotary Club did two events for the community. One shortly, several days after the tornado, they set up at Spicer Heights. I'm going to call it that. I know it's got a new name. Where they provided food to everyone in those neighborhoods. And then they also hosted another event here, which was for all the workers for the city and township, which included, I don't know how many jurisdictions were in here eating. We had to shift it for 3 different shifts to eat in here. They provided that meal at no cost to all the workers that were doing debris management. So I have added that one. You simply can pass one motion as presented for all of them. What we'll do after this is I'll work with Amy to start reaching out to each of the jurisdictions so we can attend their city council meeting or township trustee meeting, present the proclamation and the appropriate amount of coins for the staff.
So do you wanna just read one whole thing, or?
I just pass the proclamations as presented, because you'll read them again individually to each of the jurisdictions.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to pass the proclamations recognizing, oh, this is not,
That one.
not this one.
This is wrong.
make a motion to pass the proclamations that are recognizing the contributions of the different entities that we have listed during the 2019 tornado outbreak.
Second.
Ms. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Thank you, board. If you like, I'll move on while you're signing both, or we can wait. It's up to you.
You can keep up.
Keep,
Keep going. Go. Thank you, board. Next item is confirming the budget dates, budget hearing dates. Budgets are due to me today by staff by 4:30, so we're glad you passed that, so we don't have to make any changes. So 4:30 today, all budgets are due to me. I'll put together the packet. I'll send it out as I usually do late the night before Thanksgiving, kind of your Thanksgiving present
Thank you.
the budget. The budget here, date, after talking with staff, the elected officials in regards to the dates that are available, we are confirming December 17th, starting at 8:30. I would like to add, since it's a special meeting as well, I do like to add at the end of that, we did get the results for the promotional test for both captain and lieutenant. By the policy, or by the resolution that was passed earlier, we do have an extra lieutenant, knowing that we were gonna promote that. Since then, we've moved those lieutenants that were eligible to be captains through by transferring and filling the vacant captain position, kind of getting ready for their promotional test. We would like to do at the end of that, at 4:30 that day, is promote a captain. We do have a lot of administrative stuff coming up for each of the shifts. A major would be vacation picks by contract. So we would like the new captain that's getting promoted to handle his or her shift.
Okay. And was Ms. Dean invited to the
Yes.
budget hearing?
Yes,
Great.
Ms. Dean was invited.
They're very exciting. Bring snacks for yourself. I bring my own.
So you're hiring or swearing in or all the above?
Hiring, well, promoting.
Just
not hiring.
promoting,
Yeah,
yeah.
promoting a lieutenant to captain and swearing them in. They're already employed with us.
I have no, that sounds fine.
Okay, thank you, board. That's all I had under the administrator. Next item is the biweekly report for the sheriff's office. Are there any questions?
I had none.
I had none.
I had none.
Okay, thank you, board. Next item is on page 39 of your packets, the biweekly report for the HR department. Are there any questions?
My only comment is, can we, in the new year, can we please have these, being able to touch the screen and get to that point in your
Active
present,
links,
in the packet?
dynamic links.
There are active and dynamic links already built in. They should be on your new tablets, so.
Great, because it takes a while when you have
Yep.
91 pages to flip through to the right
Yeah.
section.
You should, even though it's on there, like, you could hit cover page, go back there, hit HR, and it should take you to the active link there.
I had no questions for
Thank you.
I
HR.
have none.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. Next item starts on page 42 of your packet, is the biweekly report for zoning. Are there any questions? A lot of activity going on, obviously, as you can see.
I had none.
Looks like you had Stone Ridge under, I guess it'd be under roads / zoning, but under asphalt.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
and when does the fire hydrant go in? It is in now. Okay.
They were testing it last
That's
week.
the 300 feet it went in. Okay. So it should be real close to the house they're building.
Right across the street.
Yep.
Now, with the asphalt, currently the base asphalt is the only thing that's in. Still have to do the intermediate course.
Sure.
That's under discussion how that all is gonna work. Once they put it down, it's a year out from then.
It's getting late, yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
I had none.
I have none.
Thank you, board. Next item is IT. On page 49 is a purchase request for replacement cameras. They're in this building as part of our security system. In your packet on page 49 is the budget justification. This was budgeted, and I have 3 quotes there. And with a motion on page 50. Are there any questions?
I had some questions. On the 3 different quotes, can you tell me why one was so far off? I mean, it wasn't even close. They just didn't care about the quoting process, or their cameras were so much more expensive? I just find that unusual to be that far out of league.
So we brought 3 different companies in. These were their responses after they did a site walkthrough. I think one of the companies proposed to do a little bit more aggressive work than what the other ones did. So one of them was choosing to replace wiring and some other components along the way that cost more.
And we don't need to have any wiring or anything replaced, is that correct?
For this particular project, we need to replace an existing camera and move some others to cover the sheriff's vehicles. And so the different proposals attack it in different ways. So the other 2 companies said they could reuse most of what was already there.
Okay, well, we gotta save the money. And are these cameras smaller and more intense, I'm assuming with the new technology?
Yes, they are.
I have a legal question. Do we have any legal requirements to fence in the area when we have the sheriff's cars here in the lot?
No, not anything I would think of that you would have any requirements for that, no.
I know it's coming down for police departments, and I just was wondering on how it would affect us as far as the sheriff.
Yeah, so we do have one vehicle stored in the bay, with the other one out on the road. So this camera also oversees that, so we know, like, in the Dayton region, there was some vandalism to some police cruisers that were outside, but they didn't have cameras, that could be used to track down who did the vandalism. So the intent of putting one of the vehicles in the bay was so that we didn't have both sitting outside. One will be on patrol, so sometimes you'll see it parked on the west side over here. That's when they're in the substation.
Okay.
If you see it parked on the other side of the fire station on the east side, the other one's either in use, and that's why we're recommending having some security cameras on there.
And who's observing the cameras when they're installed? Where does the feed go to?
It's recorded on a DVR, and then the admin staff at the office next door have viewable access, and part of this proposal will give viewable access to the sheriff's substation for both systems.
Okay.
So it's retroactive. You're not monitoring it, or you're not sitting there
It's after
watching
the
24
fact.
hours.
No.
But if there was a situation, you could go back and
Right.
are you recording for 7 or 30 days or
7.
longer?
7 days currently.
Okay, so you have a rolling, so you need to, so for example, if we were to put a camera on the building across the street by the park, then we would need to monitor that. We would need to at least take a check of the building every 7 days, because otherwise you're gonna wipe the history.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
and this only comes from my self-storage experience. So these cameras, there is, the simple way to beat a night vision camera is to put on a fluorescent vest, and you become a ghost. And so you can walk across the camera all night long with a fluorescent vest on, and the camera cannot see you. All it sees is a white blur. So do we know if these cameras have beat that have essentially beat that workaround?
These particular ones do not. This was an attempt to adjust our current system to at least cover the sheriff's vehicles, which it currently does not. When we
Okay.
moved into this building, the cameras were placed and the sheriff vehicles were in a different location than they are now. And one of the cameras on that end of the building does not function at all.
So you're just augmenting?
We're augmenting for now, and then I know we have a discussion later about building security, in which those are the topics that will come to that.
Okay, it's just, there's new technology that will beat that workaround.
Yes.
And now
But
that
is-
I've made that public information, it should be. But it is what it is, so it's well-known in the storage industry.
But these cameras won't, if there's something going on, an activity, it won't trigger an alarm or anything. I mean, it's just It's monitoring, so it's not
Straight
gonna
monitor.
trigger any kind of a
Yeah, straight-
sensor type of thing if there's a major movement if.
So the actual recorder actually triggers to record on motion. It
Right.
doesn't just constantly record
Oh,
all the time.
okay, so,
And we can set up alerts out of that, if we have specific events we want to cover. But if you think about the outside cameras, every time a vehicle drives by would be
Bird,
an alert, that would be
Deer,
sent.
squirrel.
thank you.
And eventually, we're talking also, it's, especially with eBay and Let Go and all the other apps, is a lot of places are offering secured, monitored, so where you can do your replacement. So if you're selling let's say an appliance, you can meet the person at this location, it'll be signed, it'll say it's being recorded.
Right.
And they can have that exchange. We are considering that for the west side of the lot here, has put some signage up to allow that to take place. You know, so that if there is an incident, we have it recorded. But that's down the road, that's working with the sheriff's office to say, you know, if they're interested in doing that. But a lot of police departments and law enforcement are providing that at their locations. What it saves is calling a deputy or a police officer to come and witness the transaction.
Right.
In one other thing, and it's typically inexpensive to do we have signs that tell visitors that drive through the entrances that they're on camera?
No, we do not.
We are talking about signage for that.
Because one of the best deterrents is the sign. You
Right.
could have a dummy camera and a sign, and it says, you know, smile, you're on camera.
There's a motion on page 50.
If there's no other questions, I make a motion to approve purchase request 10467 to HSI Security, Inc. for security camera and monitors in the amount of $3,807, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second,
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. On page 60 starts the biweekly report. Are there any questions for IT?
I had none.
I had none.
I have none.
Thank you, Board. First item's on page 63 of your packet. We did pass a resolution certifying the renewal to the county auditor. He did find one typo. He said it shouldn't be a big deal, but didn't want any challenges at the Board of Elections. We said, no problem, we'll come back and fix it. It was actually a 3 when it should have been a 5 on one of the revised code sections. So we're fixing that, and we still have plenty of time to send it back to the county auditor, so that he can send us the amounts, and then on the 9th meeting, pass a resolution to put it on the ballot with the ballot language and certify that to the Board of Elections. So there is a motion to rescind the original resolution, and then another motion, pass the new one.
I'll make a motion to rescind resolution 2019-11-12-F.
Second.
Mr. Kretz?
Second,
Ms.
yes, sorry. I'm reading ahead, sorry.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve a resolution requesting the county auditor to certify the current tax valuation of Beavercreek Township as presented.
Second,
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. I have 2 resolutions here, one for us and one for the county auditor. The next item, Board, is that time of year. We're getting into the winter months, and it's time to hire our winter seasonal employee. I do have a motion on page 63, also with a resolution. You can do the resolution as presented.
Is this a returning?
It is. This will be his 4th year with us.
The motion in the packet covers.
I'll make a
those.
motion to approve a resolution to hire Gregory Smith as a seasonal road worker. Per the resolution as presented.
Second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
And on the winter topic, next item is to purchase search.
Salt.
Salt, not search, salt. Budget justification is on page 63 with a motion on page 64.
Are we working with other entities to purchase this salt?
Actually went through SWAP for G, which is 117 agencies that went together. Out of those 117, we were probably in the bottom 20% in price.
Okay.
Because our neighbors just next door are paying $10 more a ton than we are.
I like our deal better.
Just buy extra, sell them.
Any other questions? I make a motion to approve purchase request 10167 to Cargill Inc. for road salt to an amount of $36,000 and authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second,
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item is the biweekly report on page 71. Are there any questions for Mr. Parks?
I had no questions.
Mr. Kretz asked my question earlier about the road going in.
On Stone Ridge, so we have a fire hydrant, we have at least one layer of asphalt.
Correct.
And as far as erosion control, it didn't look like it was there the other day, but
It's coming.
Okay.
They're still working currently on finishing the connection to the pond.
I was gonna say, so is it detention or retention or,
It's a detention.
okay. And so they'll, okay, I saw them digging that, so.
They had a few other issues to deal with when it came over there.
Okay, and line of sight issues with where that entrance is located?
County was okay with it.
Okay,
So, the other one that is now under pavement is Nathaniel's Grove, section 4. So it should be up and running, cause they're almost out of lots in section 3. And on another note, Engine 62 is officially back in the township
Yay.
as of Friday afternoon.
You'll get it back.
What's the latest or the most updated status as far as the mower that was hit by the driver? I mean, did that all get settled, resolved?
Yeah, there was no damage to our vehicle.
Okay,
Their car didn't fare quite as well.
okay,
So
okay.
it was at
So
their at fault.
we had no claim to pursue then?
That is
ultimately?
correct.
Okay, that's where I was chasing. Okay.
Thank you, Board. First item is the addition that we added in the beginning of the meeting. Chief Young is retiring. He's given us a date of January 3rd while all his family's in town for the ceremony. This will be a little bit different than the ones that we've done in the past, since it's a chief officer. We do, with Chief Young, we go to all 4 fire stations with them and then come back here to do the reading of the proclamation and cake and ice cream. So I do have a proclamation here, 2 copies as well, honoring Chief Young's service with Beavercreek Township.
And the offer is you can just approve it as presented. It'll be read later, just like the
Read at
others,
the
unless you want to
ceremony.
read it now.
Yeah, I wanna go ahead and read it.
Pass the gavel.
Yeah, well. Alright, with that, I will pass the gavel to Ms. Wallace, and it's truly my great and high honor to read this resolution into the record honoring Battalion Chief Dave Young on the date of his retirement. Whereas Battalion Chief Dave Young submitted his letter of resignation for retirement to be effective Friday, January 3rd, 2020, and whereas is a Beavercreek native graduating from Beavercreek High School in 1982 and is a member of the Beavercreek High School Alumni Hall of Fame, and whereas he joined the Beavercreek Township Fire Department as a volunteer in 1983, beginning his service as a volunteer firefighter and later serving as part-time firefighter, career firefighter, lieutenant, and battalion chief. And whereas he was instrumental in the creation of the Miami Valley Trench Rescue Team, Miami Valley Urban Search and Rescue, Ohio Task Force 1, and the Region 3 Strike Team. And whereas he has an exemplary service record, has been recognized with a Medal of Valor for his response to New York following the 9/11 attacks, Meritorious Service Medal for Pump Class Creation and UL FSRI Research Burns, a Purple Heart Medal for injuries from the Ken Flare Fire Incident, a Firefighter Commendation Medal for an auto extrication incident on Trebine Road, 2 Fire Unit Commendations for the 2008 Hurricane Ike response, and 2010 Mill Run Fire Incident where 2 lives were saved, 4 EMS Unit Commendations for 3 cardiac arrest incidents with positive outcomes, and an auto extrication incident on Shakertown and Grange Hall Roads, an Honorable Service Ribbon for the Blue Card Command Program, 3 Firefighter of the Year ribbons for 2000, 2002, and 2008, and a deployment ribbon for New York following the 9/11 attacks. And whereas he is a live fire instructor and has served as an academy instructor at Sinclair Community College, Greene County Career Center, Greene County Fire School, and has taught structural collapse at the Ohio Fire Academy, advanced auto extrication at the State Fire School at Bowling Green, and has been a presenter at the Fire Department Instructors Conference, and is currently a member of the UL Fire Safety Research Institute Technical Panel for Size Up and Search and Rescue Experiments. And whereas he developed and taught classes for Beavercreek Township Fire Department on a variety of topics, including pump operations, rope rescue, auto extrication, confined space rescue, new firefighter orientation, live fire training, and was instrumental in the department's adoption and deployment of the Blue Card Incident Command System. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the Board of Township Trustees of Beavercreek Township, offer Battalion Chief David Young our gratitude for his service and dedication to the citizens of Beavercreek Township and the city of Beavercreek, and congratulate him on his retirement from the Beavercreek Township Fire Department. Further be it proclaimed that the Beavercreek Township Fire Department will retire Unit Number 26 upon his retirement.
Second.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Please pass on our tremendous gratitude for his years of service.
Sure will. Thank you. Thank you, Board. First item on the fire department is on page 72 is request to modify existing purchase request, 10,403. While we were going through this process, the business name changed. So it's the correct amount, same company, just a new business name.
Okay, I make a motion to modify purchase request 10403, approved 2019-11-12, replacing vendor name CW Miller with J&J Auto Works, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item is to request the board to approve a donation policy for the auxiliary. We do have one member of the auxiliary here, and Deputy Chief Marks can explain it.
Yes, so we received a donation, and it was requested to go to the township, to the fire department, but the donation went to the township, so we're asking if it is possible, if the board would be willing to pass a resolution or a motion here that would allow for those donations that are made to the township, that they can be, the funds can be directed to where they're requested or asked of.
Absolutely. Yes.
The donation was actually made with a notation that it go to the auxiliary. I know because I made the donation. We have a wonderful fire department, and we have to honor and each and every one of them whenever we can. The auxiliary provides for the welfare of the fire department and their families. And this donation was to see that that was taking place. Is it possible within the township fire department budget to have a line item for auxiliary for the donations. These are not public tax dollars. These are private donations to go for a specific purpose to help the auxiliary. And I would hope that you would consider the fact that such could be done. And so I know we've done that in the past. I know the Township Trustees, a number of years ago, each of us provided $500. We gave it to the township to be paid to take care of some of these kinds of issues. So I would like that to just be a place to have it, provide it, so that in the future, when such donations are made, there's no question.
Thank you.
Carol.
Board, I have a motion on page 72.
I'll make a motion to allow departments to code cash donations to their most appropriate cost center and to authorize their expenditure for the purpose for which the donation was made within the township's legal authority, to expend funds, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you. Thank you. Next item is an awareness item on the project scope for the drone program.
Yes, so board, you did recently pass the drone program package that we brought to you. After that, the program manager found out some information, and it was a best practice that if you have a drone program, to purchase a less expensive training drone, because as new instructors go, these things are easy to run into the ground, the wall, and so forth, and rather do that to a less expensive training drone than the more expensive one that we want to use. So they went out and purchased an 800 drone that's approximately $800, but that was not in the original proposal, so we're bringing that to you now so you understand that's part of the scope. It was a newer member, didn't realize that. It was just an afterthought. That wasn't, in the original presentation. It wasn't something they thought of, but it was a good idea to save you money on. So we wanted to make you aware of that and see if you had any questions.
So did the total cost of the program go up $800?
Yes,
Okay.
because of the purchase of the second drone. We now have a second drone. I don't know if they've actually received the first one yet, but I have seen the second training drone. So yes, the total price went up $800 approximately with the purchase of this.
So are they similar in size? I'm assuming the training drone's gonna have more.
I
Cage.
believe it's smaller. I don't know if you know the
It is-
technical aspect of
It
it.
is a smaller drone, but the controls are similar, including the interface for the user and the viewer. So it allows them to actually have an instructor and a trainer, but it is a much smaller unit, which is more apt to training without damage.
There will still probably most likely be a learning gap to go to, if it's a more sensitive gyro in the more expensive unit, it will fly different, so just obviously be aware.
I guess the thought process is in the initial training, you can damage or.
Sure.
So
Lower risk.
Lower risk, yeah.
lower the risk a lot.
I appreciate the update.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. Next item is to request a medic unit. We did, at my request, we did hold off on this purchase. This was budgeted for this year. I definitely wanted to wait to see the outcome of the election. We are recommending moving forward. This does meet and go with just part of the topic we had earlier in regards to our rating system through the Novak report. So budget justification starts on page 73 with several motions all the way to page 75. Staff is here to answer any questions.
To clarify, this was in the budget. You wanted to wait until the outcome of the fire levy.
Correct.
And this is part of the commitment in that 10-year funding plan. This is not, or is this in addition to the 10-year funding
This
plan?
is prior.
Previous 10
Okay,
years
I
prior.
just want to make sure I understand. So,
But to be fiscally responsible, we waited.
Right, I understand, but we're not buying one early for the 10-year plan. We will still, whatever equipment we have in that 10-year funding plan that we put out in the InTouch, that's still the plan.
That's correct.
So it's,
Good.
okay.
Good clarification.
I'll make a motion to approve purchase request 10464 to Burgess, Earth, and Ambulance Sales for the one medical transport vehicle in the amount of $271,794, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve purchase request 10465 to Stryker Medical for one power cot and accessories in the amount of $22,622.09, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
With discussion. Now, is this is an additional unit, or is,
This is a replacement cot. The
Replacement.
cot
so it's a
is-
replacement cot, so this is not one of the ones we previously replaced?
Correct. What we replaced earlier, or what we added to our fleet earlier in the year, was the loading system.
Right.
That loading system that was purchased will be transferred to this
Okay.
medic on its arrival. This new cot replaces the actual cot, and that will be compatible with that loading system.
Great, for clarification,
Does-
thank you.
I'll piggyback another question. And on this new cot, does it sustain more weight than the prior one, or does it sustain the same amount of weight?
It does because it is a newer model, and additionally, it has the wings that allow us to transport patients that are wider than what the current cot will
Okay.
have. The maintenance records on the current cot have, the costs annually for replacement parts have gone up, and that cot is now unsupported, which is what's driving the replacement.
Thank you.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
One more, page 75.
Oh, you pulled that. Didn't you?
No,
Oh,
there's
the
three
radio,
motions.
okay.
Yeah.
Total of 3.
Yeah, there's a total of 3
All right.
associated with the medic unit.
Any discussion on the radio? I make a motion to approve purchase request 10466 to Motorola Solutions for one mobile radio in the amount of $5,334, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you, board. Next item will be the Shareport configuration services. That is, since we're pulling the other one, that is on page
77.
76. And with a motion on page 77. Staff's here to answer any questions.
Just want to give a real quick highlight.
This is migration to a new SharePoint. The SharePoint system that we have now, the SharePoint platform they have now is older and outdated. It is utilized immensely by the fire department, and the chief is wanting to migrate to the new SharePoint. Just keeps up with 360, everything else with technology, but it needs to be developed properly. And I believe that the chief attempted to try to develop it, but found out that this was a lot to put together here. So he's contracted, seeked out with a contractor that is a professional in this field and is hopefully to hire to actually put this together and set it up right so we don't have any problems with it. You know, if there's anything more technical, I know Chief Easter can add to that, but the chief has requested this. The amount of time and effort to use staff to do this is just too much, and Back to Business IT said that the scope of this work is beyond what they want to do, so we're kind of left with this option. It's a significant project, and that's why he's requesting it.
Can you define SharePoint Online? What does it do and what the capabilities, please?
SharePoint services is included in our Office 365 package. It's basically an information sharing and bulletin board package that the fire department utilizes for help desk, document sharing, and collaboration, along with posting of announcements for critical information throughout the department. It works in conjunction with the rest of our Office 365 suite, and currently we're using a SharePoint site from SharePoint 2006, which ended support in 2010, so we're 9 years past that. We're also paying maintenance on the server through Back to Business to run SharePoint 2006 because we haven't been able to migrate to SharePoint with Office 365 because of the development.
Is this typically just a fire department software?
No, everybody in the township uses SharePoint.
Enterprise-wide.
It's essentially like a memo board. So, for example, if I needed to post something in regards to, and we're gonna dress down on this day because it's, Wednesday, because it's the new Friday, which I will be putting out to staff, that would go to SharePoint, and then everybody would see it. The advantage is, it's now, since we already have it on Office 365, you'll be able to access it either in the fire stations, online, or through any of the 365 login apps. You can actually download it on these devices as well.
So Office 365 is not capable of sharing memos like that?
No, it does. That's
Through
what we're
SharePoint.
migrating to, is the newer version of SharePoint under Office 365.
Oh, okay.
So,
It's like an
So
Excel.
we
or a
can't
Word.
have
It's a-
Office 365 do that. We have to add this software to that.
It's a web-based portal for that information,
Correct.
rather than emailing it to every individual person. So if you need to place an announcement or information, you can post it as a virtual bulletin board,
Okay.
rather than filling everybody's email box and then making it a more cluttered of an environment.
And and this is only internally
Correct.
with Beavercreek Township?
Correct.
It doesn't speak to any other fire districts then?
It does allow us to share and collaborate documents outside of our organization. So as an example, when we work on the budget document, we work with that internally and share and collaborate that information, and I can actually see the changes that, say, Chief Merckx is making at the same time I am. I can also choose to share documents outside of our organization and work the same way because of the SharePoint services.
Okay, that's
You
how I
could give
wanted
the auditor a link essentially and share it directly.
All right, I just want to see
Yeah.
more practical use than just internally.
Some of your packet information, the links in there are actually SharePoint documents that allow you to access it from a tablet outside the network internally, and we set the permissions to what you can do as a view, edit, or otherwise.
So it's like Dropbox or Google Docs on steroids.
Yes, pretty much.
Okay, now I get it.
yeah, and it is part of our Office 365 suite. So what we're asking is just to migrate to the newer version, and then we can stop support on that server there. So they'll see an adjustment in our back to business account as well.
And save money on that, too.
Is that the same tool that you used when we updated the HR manual and you shared that essentially with employees and then tracked that
Correct.
they actually had a receipt tracking that they received it and they acknowledged that they read it? So
Okay,
it gives you that.
makes sense now.
Yeah, there's a lot of enhancements, improvements to it. It'll have a lot cleaner look. Right now, our old SharePoint's getting real busy in its look, and it's confusing for a lot of the members, so we're trying to make it
Cleaner.
sure.
So you use it too as like a read and sign log for the troops?
You can, yes.
Any other questions?
How
And,
long do you think it's gonna take?
I believe the proposal has a 3-month window to complete and provide training as well. So this package does include training, the development of the site, and training for staff to maintain it after it's developed.
That's good. Okay. I make a motion to approve purchase request 10427 to SharePoint Maverin for SharePoint online configuration and training in the amount of $3,200, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second,
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 77 of your packet, is request to purchase, to replace 2 thermal imaging cameras. Budget justification starts on 77 with a motion on 78. Staff's here to answer any questions. I guess you can explain what a thermal imager camera is.
Actually, I know, I've been using it. I've used it before.
These are where firefighters use to take into the facility and gives them some visibility in the building by using heat signatures, so to speak. But it's in a fire situation, you can't see anything, so,
And this is replacing ones we have that are in end of life?
and upgrading them, yes.
And this
Very
was something
important.
that was previously budgeted to occur this year in the previous 10-year cycle as well.
It's a very important tool.
It also does leverage trade-in value on your cameras.
Something I don't know, and obviously this is a specialized piece of equipment that is heat tolerant and things like that. This picture was taken on a $300 infrared attachment to this phone. And so, I don't know, from a prevention standpoint or any other applications, we may want to look at that for future. So just a thermal image you could take, looking for cold spots in a building is what we were doing. So. But the technology has gotten so much less expensive. I'll make a motion to approve purchase request 10427 468 to Finley Fire Equipment for 2 thermal image cameras in the amount of $17,490, and authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item is the biweekly activity report for the fire department. Are there any questions?
I have no questions.
I had none.
Go ahead, Don.
Thank you, Board.
Good job.
The only last thing I have for the board, not related to fire, you guys can
Thank
sit
you,
down,
Board. Appreciate it.
is the last meeting of the year. As we get close to the end of the meeting, or the end of the year, I speak with staff about canceling the last meeting of the year right around Christmas. I am recommending, again, after speaking with staff, that we go ahead and cancel the December 23rd, 2019 meeting. And I do have a motion here to officially cancel it. Unless you guys do want to meet on the 23rd.
I'll make this motion, but then I'd like to make a comment. I'll make a motion to cancel the December 23rd, 2019 regular trustee meeting.
Second.
And discussion. I'd like to publicly congratulate Ms. Dean for joining our board. Welcome. At the same time, I would like to thank Mr. Roberts for his contribution to Beavercreek Township for 10 years on the Board of Zoning Appeals, 4 years at this table. It's been a pleasure and an honor to sit next to you. And I respect everything that you've done for the township, and the township is better off because you've been here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kretz?
We need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
We had a second.
You did
Okay.
have a second. Are we okay?
We're
Yep.
good?
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. That's all I have.
All right, Ms. Frick?
Yes, I just was, gonna point out, introduce, I have Mr. Herman from my office is here, he's another attorney in my office. He's here just to observe, you know, to help out. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes where I have conflicts and stuff, and since this was a busy meeting, it was a good one for him to observe, just to see, so I just wanted to let you all know that he was here.
And we appreciate that your billable rate will be waived every time you visit.
It's just a visit,
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Ms. Aaron's?
You had two things in your packet. The first one is to accept the amounts and rates for the additional fire district levy. It can just be as presented.
We have 3 copies here. One for us, one for the fire department, and one for, one for Greene County, one for us, one for the fire department.
So I make a motion to approve the 2020 tax budget to accept additional amounts and rates at 3.5 mil fire levy that was passed on November 5th, 2019 general election.
Second.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
The second one is to approve the temporary appropriations for 2020, same way, and there should be a resolution as well.
I'll make a motion to approve the temporary appropriations for the 2020 fiscal year as presented.
Second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you for those. And then it came to my attention that we have our contract with account temps that you approved back in May for 6 months. And I am recommending that we extend those services till the end of March to finish up my term, obviously, and then allow the new fiscal officer to hire, obviously, as he and you see fit. Chris has been a great addition to our office. She's worked well with Jan, and obviously we'd like to keep her on and keep things clean through the end of the year. I am suggesting that we do an increase in our pay rate just in case account temps comes back and raises their rates for next year. Obviously, I won't know that till I get in contact with them tomorrow, but.
My only recommendation would be that we actually extend it through the end of April to give potentially just give a buffer, so that we're not in a deadline to do something before the last meeting or before the first meeting, if that makes sense to everyone. I don't know.
That makes sense
Does that make
to
sense to
me.
you?
Yes,
Yeah, I just didn't
Okay.
wanna overstep my bound. I'm up till
Nope.
March 31st.
I think that's a fair thing to
Just
do.
the,
That's
I make a motion for an extension of services for account temps temporary employee through April 30th of 2020.
second with discussion, are we approving that at the current rate or at a new rate?
Oh, I'm sorry, I
And if
didn't
we
say.
are, what is the new rate?
I'm sorry, I didn't read that part. I move to approve the extension of services through March 30th, 2020 for an account temps employee to work in the fiscal office in the accounts payable payroll position for up to 40 hours per week at a rate not to exceed $26.52 per hour.
That's with the,
And you said March 31st on that, okay.
I said April 30th,
I'll put
April
this on.
30th
April 30th
was the original read. Okay.
But the 2652
is the
is the increase.
increase of
And that was,
projected.
yeah, the only clarification, so, yeah.
If we need it.
Yep.
If we don't, obviously. we won't.
Okay.
Thank you. Did I call?
Wait, no, we didn't.
I didn't call.
He didn't second.
I thought I seconded with second, and you can call.
Miss Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Kretz.
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Board, I echo those comments, with the temp. She's worked out great, does a great job with staff.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Aaron's?
That was it for me. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, MVRPC, Ms. Wallace?
No meeting.
No meeting. TAC?
Was in your packet. If you have
I
any
saw that.
questions, Mr. Amaran can answer them.
Okay. Regional planning, was canceled. We know there was no health. School city manager.
Thank you, Board. I did talk to the superintendent after our last meeting, and we did confirm the joint meeting for December 19th at 6:30. It is their turn to host, and we'll host it at the Kemp Road Board of Education site. City manager meeting, we continue to meet multiple times a week on various topics related to FEMA, recovery, and long-term recovery planning.
Okay. And, Ms. Dean been invited to that?
Yes, those were the
Okay.
dates I gave.
And will the new school board member be at that meeting?
That's from what I understand. He'll
Okay.
be there as well, Mr. Stein.
Wait, what was that date again?
12/19.
12/19.
Yeah, 12/19 at 6:30.
All right, Restoration Advisory Board?
We do have a meeting on December 11th. I think the big topic is going to be drinking water on this agenda. And I'll share any information after the meeting with you.
Right, Township Association?
Last one will be the Christmas.
December 10th.
Yep.
At Country Club of the North. They want RSVPs, please, as soon as possible.
I unfortunately will be out of town. I do, Ms. Dean, if you can attend that, you should absolutely attend that. It is a great event. Pretty cool and sometimes hilarious door prizes. And if you don't already have a plan for your swearing in, they will swear you in at that meeting. So,
Yep, I already warned her.
Yeah, it takes you.
Investment Oversight.
We've finalized on December 3rd?
I still have to reach out to the
Okay.
person.
Okay, so we're targeting December 3rd in the late afternoon for a investment oversight committee meeting.
All right, Mr. Kretz. Anybody go to board?
Nothing further than what I've already stated, so, to those that, we won't see prior to Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. For those that celebrate other holidays, this time of year, happy holidays. It's been been an enjoyable year. So thank you for all your hard work and efforts, and let's keep it rolling.
Ms. Wallace?
I'd like to say my appreciation to you, Jeff, on bringing me in and teaching me information that I needed to know as township trustee, and it's going on my second year. But I appreciate working with you and the wisdom that you had and what you've done for the township, and was able to keep conversations well and intriguing and also educational. So thank you for all your work.
A little bit of fun.
And some fun.
Thank you.
And then to the citizens and the township employees, to have a safe and healthy and blessed holiday time with your loved ones, and make every moment count.
For my time, I do have one question. Are we on track with everyone getting their budget information to you?
Well,
Mr.
at 4:30 today.
4:30 today, and Ms. Aarons, are you?
I hadn't, to be honest, hadn't even looked at it.
Okay.
And, I mean, honestly, I can probably put something together, but it'll be what it was last year, and then with the 2%, I don't. Jan says we're working on it.
Okay,
I personally was not working on it.
that's okay. I know we set that date way out and tried to make it as public as possible, and anything you could do to make everyone's life easier on the 16th, so we're not there for 2-3 days, it would be much appreciated.
17.
I'll be there on the 17th.
17th.
You're welcome to show up on the 16th. I'll let you know. I'll let you know that it is 2 days after that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Kratz. And as well as, I want to thank, the township, all the employees and staff. Wish them all a happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays. This is definitely an important time to reflect and to be with family and to remember what is important to all of us. Just a point of reminder, technically this is my last meeting. I will be in Florida, as I usually am, the first meeting in December for soccer. So I will not be here. I will miss you all, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve the township for the last decade and a half. I will continue to serve in some format, but I know that the township is in a good spot and moving forward in the right direction. And again, welcome Ms. Dean to the family. We are glad you're here, and we will make sure that you are welcomed. With that, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session under Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1 to consider the employment and compensation of a public employee, and additionally under Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G6 for details relative to the security arrangements and emergency response protocols for a public body or public office, if disclosure of those matters discussed could reasonably be detected to jeopardize the security of the public body or office.
So moved?
Second, and I'd like to request a 5-minute recess after, before we go into executive session.
Okay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Kratz?
Yes,
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
thank you. Happy
Thank you all for
Thanksgiving.
coming. It is 4:56 p.m. We will entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved?
Second,
Mr. Kratz?
yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes. Anything for the good of the board?
I'd like to make a motion to extend the unpaid leave of absence for Justin Davis to January 14th, 2020.
Second?
Mr. Kratz?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes. Seeing nothing else to come before the board, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second,
Mr. Kratz?
yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes, at 4:57.